Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be able to present and describe to you the process for evaluation and approval of the vaccines. So what I want to do is cover four key topics to look at how we bring together the expertise from the European network and how we are able to bring that to bear to carry out this evaluation process and do so in a rapid way using the rolling review and conditional marketing authorization terms you may well have seen already. And finally, to discuss the quality checks that are applied to the vaccine before it's released to the market. So I'm focusing on the evaluation. So Marco has covered all the development phases, the quality, non-clinical and clinical trials. I'm now looking at the evaluation by EMA and our scientific experts, and then the marketing authorization decision by the European Commission. Clearly, as part, and Marco has indicated in the process, the manufacturers have already been scaling up their manufacturing. That will continue further post-authorization, but we are looking at as it is already developed. The important thing is that we have a very rigorous benefit-risk evaluation by our scientific experts. The role of EMA is to ensure the independent review of evidence generated for the COVID-19 vaccines and to make recommendations on their use in EU citizens, driven by patient and public health needs. EMA's recommendation will be based on the strength of the scientific evidence on a vaccine's safety, quality, and efficacy, and nothing else. And authorization will be granted when the evidence shows convincingly that the benefits of vaccination are greater than any risks of the vaccine. Safety is paramount. Vaccines are given to a very large population, many of whom are healthy. They're certainly not yet suffering from COVID in the large majority of cases, so it's to prevent that disease, and wherefore safety is very important. The benefits, of course, are very clear, and we need to establish those, and that there is a high proportion of benefit to risk. Now, in order to carry out this evaluation, Marco has already described the COVID-19 task force, which is in the box to the right of the slide, and that task force brings together experts from across the network in vaccines, in clinical trial methodology, in the manufacture of vaccines, the safety assessment, the clinical efficacy, and so on. And that allows us to support both the scientific advice with the developers, which we provide to developers, and then the ongoing process of evaluation. That has been set up specifically as part of our health threat plan for the COVID-19 pandemic. But of course, for the core assessment of the scientific evidence, we have the Committee for Human Medicinal Products, who evaluate all medicines brought to the EMA for evaluation, and our Pharmacovigilance Risk Assessment Committee, who look at the safety and risk minimization. They're looking at the risk management plans before marketing authorization, and they will clearly follow all of the emerging safety data, which my colleague Peter Arlett will explain in the next presentation in more detail once the product is placed on the market. But we have now, in this situation, a really unprecedented pooling of expertise in Europe to reduce timelines. Once we start the evaluation and the rolling review, we have a rapporteur and a co-rapporteur from two European medicines agencies, and they bring with them their quality, safety, and efficacy teams of experts to evaluate the dossiers that we're receiving from the company and the data that comes in, ask questions to the company, evaluate the responses, and then bring together that assessment so that we can bring that into the final CHMP opinion. This is a huge pooling of expertise. Both groups are meeting frequently, focused discussion, and working long hours through the days and weekends to achieve this. So we have an approval process which is able to move rapidly because of the urgency of the situation, but nonetheless still ensures that we have a full evaluation of all the data that is available, and that this is done with the same thoroughness that we would do for any other medicine. And therefore, I want to describe to you how the process of rolling review, where we begin to look at evidence that is emerging from the companies and the data that they can provide as they complete each of the early studies through the non-clinical and clinical parts, but also as they build up their quality and manufacturing data. Following that, they then apply for a conditional marketing authorization, and we review that. So this is the formal marketing authorization application, like for any other medicine. In this case, we're using the tool of conditional marketing authorization, and I'll explain why that is the case. And then we reach the opinion at the CHMP and transfer that to the European Commission, who will then issue the conditional marketing authorization. So rolling review is a process we have in place which enables us in public health emergency to evaluate data as soon as available. So as soon as a developer has the information and a report on a particular study, be that in the pharmaceutical development and quality and manufacturing, in the non-clinical studies, or as they progress through clinical trials, they provide that to us. We can evaluate that, ask questions, evaluate the answers, so that cumulatively we're working our way through the dossier as the information becomes available. And the pace at which we can do that is driven by the availability of the information and the ability of the companies to respond to the questions that we raise. There are several rolling review cycles can be done as the data continues to emerge. And once all the quality, safety, and efficacy data are ready, the company then formally applies for the marketing application to EMA. In all cases, this step of formal marketing application will take place unless, for whatever reason, the clinical trials at an earlier stage or some other development has prevented that from progressing. So to look now in a little more detail at how this works and why it's effective in ensuring that we have a full evaluation of the dossier, but at the same time that we're able to proceed much sooner to the EMA opinion and European Commission marketing authorization. So if you look at the top in the diagram, you have a long pale bar on the left, reaching the marketing authorization application point, and then a darker blue bar on the right, where EMA evaluates the data. And in the standard situation, the developer will wait until they've completed all of the studies. And indeed, as Marcus showed, those studies may be done in a much more sequential way. The manufacturing data may not be generated until they have more confidence that it will be a successful medicine. So that period can be quite long, but they only submit the marketing authorization when all of the necessary data to complete that application is ready and is submitted in a complete unit. And then we carry on with the dark blue phase. And of course, as you can imagine, would we do that now, we would only not even yet be receiving the full application dossier, and that would then be the time at which we would start to look at any of the data, and it would stretch far into next year. So clearly that's not workable in a public health emergency. And what we do is we have the rolling review cycle, and as you can see, data comes into us. As it becomes available, we are able to evaluate that using the assessment teams of the CHMP and the rapporteur and co-rapporteur. They can draw on other expertise from the ETF, from the Biologicals Working Party, for instance, where they need to look in detail at the manufacturing process, and we need to bring together the expertise from across the EU and other teams of experts who can bring their focus on particular aspects of the studies. When that data has reached a sufficient point and we are well advanced with the dossier, the company can then submit the most completed dossier for our formal marketing authorization. And because we've already gone through this period of rolling review, the outstanding work for the agency and our scientific experts to evaluate is much more limited. And we are able to go through that process in a shorter time, but without overall reducing the extent or rigor of our scientific evaluation or the necessary data that should be submitted to us. So we then move to the conditional marketing authorization. This is an approval for medicines to be used in public health emergencies. It's clearly foreseen for use in public health emergencies. The legislation refers to emergencies declared by the WHO or the European Union. And this can be done as soon as the data available shows that benefits outweigh the risks. Always, the benefits must clearly outweigh the risks, and particularly with vaccines, we need to be very sure that the safety is well understood and is at a very high level. However, we can then make conditions on the marketing authorization which enable other data to be provided by the company after approval. So for instance, the longer term follow-up of people in clinical trials up to 1 year to show the extent of and duration of protection from COVID-19, the longer term safety information, but also studies, for instance, in manufacturing, which may help to improve the storage conditions for the vaccines so that they can be made available on an easier basis, but only after we have been able to rigorously assess that and ensure the quality standards are met. So why is a conditional approval the most appropriate tool in the EU? Well, the key point is that this conditional marketing authorization is valid throughout the European Union for all our member states at the same time. All member states benefit, all citizens benefit from the same rigorous assessment, the same development of the conditions, the package leaflet, the prescribing information, but also at the same time. We're all together and we bring that together at the same time, and everybody can use that conditional marketing authorization then to progress to the vaccination campaigns. It has all the safeguards and controls of a standard marketing authorization in place to ensure a high level of protection to citizens during a mass vaccination campaign. And what's really important here is that vaccination will be carried out in many, many people. And we really need to have a high standard of assessment before that takes place, but also a very rigorous control framework within which to follow those vaccines as they are used on the market. And this is really important to give our citizens confidence in the safety and the efficacy of the vaccines, because the willingness of all of us to participate in these vaccination campaigns is also very, very important. And our confidence in those and the confidence of citizens is paramount. We have a robust monitoring plan for managing safety, and indeed Melanie will illustrate how that is also made public. And this continues after the authorization. There's a clear legal framework for evaluation of emerging efficacy data, because clearly more efficacy data will become available as the existing clinical trials continue to gather data, but also as new trials, which we may require the companies to do, or which they may themselves or others conduct, reveal new data. The manufacturing controls are there as for any other medicine. In vaccine cases, this includes additional batch controls, and I will describe those on a later slide. We have the full prescribing information, package leaflet, the defined storage conditions, and use of the vaccine. But again, if companies can provide more extended stability data, it may be possible to authorize a more practical storage arrangements. As you know, that's challenging for some of these vaccines, but only after that data has been provided and we're able to assess it to the necessary standards. But these things are part of the conditions that we may apply to the marketing authorization. There will be a plan for use of the vaccine in children. Additional studies will be required, or other data may need to be collected, be it on the manufacturing or on the safety or on the efficacy. And these are the conditions that we will apply and become part of the marketing authorization, and our companies are legally obliged to provide these within the defined timelines. So it provides a very strong framework for assessment before authorization, but for control of the use of the vaccines and the further data that becomes available on them throughout their use. Before, as I said, before vaccines are released on the market, there is extensive testing before we issue the marketing authorization, and part of the dossier that we require is extensive testing of batches and of the manufacturing process and the controls within that to ensure that the company is able to produce the vaccine on a continuous basis to meet those standards. And they must meet the specifications which are agreed by EMA. After approval, each batch of vaccine is approved via EMA and will be tested, each batch of a vaccine approved by the EMA will be tested, of course, by the manufacturers themselves, but also before they are used in immunization programs, there is an independent test done by the official medicine control laboratory. So in conclusion, the scientific assessment carried out by EMA is a very important role. EU citizens rely on that evaluation and on the rigor of that evaluation. It sets out to protect the European population by providing effective vaccines and safe vaccines and to support citizens' confidence in using these vaccines. There is stringent scientific evaluation by EMA on the quality, safety, and efficacy, with an unprecedented pooling of EU expertise from across the network, rolling review of data as it becomes available to enable fast approval, and conditional marketing authorization providing strong safeguards for the authorization and for the supervision of the product and evaluation of new data as it becomes available. Independent quality checks before vaccinations start. Now, this is a public health emergency. Some data will emerge post-approval, and we need to continue to monitor that, whether it comes from studies we've imposed or from monitoring which public health authorities are themselves carrying out. And on that point, it's my pleasure to hand over to Dr. Peter Arlett, Head of Data Analytics and Methods, who will describe the safety monitoring of COVID-19 vaccines.